What if I told you something the immense size of 33 billion tons of cosmic matter suddenly vanished from NASA's critical radar right in front of our most powerful instruments, and absolutely nobody on Earth truly knows where it went? Stick around for every important detail, because what happened immediately after its closest approach to the Sun will absolutely blow your mind. Right now, at this very moment, we are standing face to face with a phenomenon that no one at NASA, ESA, or any space agency truly saw coming or predicted. The interstellar traveler known as 3IATLAS, the third confirmed visitor from beyond the confines of our own solar system, has performed an action that fundamentally shakes the very foundations of everything we thought we understood about space physics and celestial mechanics. Before we begin, I need you to do something for me. Comment your city name below and tell me, have you noticed anything unusual in the night sky lately? Any lights that don't move like satellites? Any patterns that seem too deliberate to be random? NASA is quietly collecting this data, and they want to know where these phenomena are being seen. What I'm about to share may change the way you see humanity's place in the universe. If you're captivated by the profound mystery of 3IATLAS and want to see more mind-bending existential cosmic stories and reports, smash that like button and let the universe know you're watching and engaged. Every single click helps keep the urgent search for the unknown alive and funded. The object didn't slowly drift away into the surrounding darkness, fading quietly and predictably like countless other natural objects before it. No, it vanished clean, sudden, and absolute right after reaching perihelion, the critical moment when it came closest to the immense gravitational and thermal forces of our Sun. One instant, it was a precisely tracked 33 billion-ton traveler racing through space. The very next instant, it was gone. No trace, no radio signal, no reflective glimmer, nothing remained. Our most powerful instruments across the globe were waiting anxiously for this specific moment. Earth-based and orbital telescopes were perfectly aligned, massive data streams were ready and recording. This was supposed to be the point of maximum visibility when solar radiation would make 3IATLAS blaze across the night sky like an intense beacon. Instead, what astronomers observed was the polar opposite, empty space. And here's the truly unsettling part of the observation. This wasn't some random, chaotic disappearance lost in the static noise of the cosmic background. It happened exactly at the moment everyone predicted the object would reveal its strangest, most non-natural behavior. A moment we had circled on calendars calculated to the very second. For months, scientists worldwide had rigorously studied its speed, its precise trajectory, and its strange, seemingly hollow structure. They watched as it behaved like nothing natural should. And then, at the peak of observation, just as its core mysteries were supposed to unfold for humanity, it slipped away as if it had deliberately chosen that moment. 3IATLAS didn't simply pass us by. It outmaneuvered our gaze. It disappeared on its own terms, leaving the best, most advanced instruments humanity has ever built, staring at nothing but the silent, echoing void. And that absolute silence is louder than any signal we could have possibly hoped to receive. October 29th, 2025, that was the pivotal day scientists had been waiting for with bated breath. The day 3IATLAS would reach its closest approach to the Sun, sliding just inside the orbit of Mars. This wasn't merely another predictable checkpoint on a chart. This was the acid test, the one moment when every single telescope on Earth and beyond was locked in, waiting to witness something truly extraordinary. When any ordinary comet gets that close to the Sun, the known rules are simple and well established. The intense heat and gravity tear it apart, sending debris and glowing tails sweeping across space like cosmic fireworks. We've seen this fragmentation process happen countless times, but 3IATLAS didn't follow those rules. As it swung behind the Sun, entering that brief, predictable blackout window, scientists prepared for the object to re-emerge on the other side, brighter, wilder, maybe fragmented, but definitively there. Except it wasn't. The James Webb Space Telescope scanned the exact coordinates where it was supposed to appear. Ground radar systems stretched their powerful signals deep into the void. The European Space Agency's tracking arrays locked onto empty space. 33 billion tons of matter, moving at incredible observed speed, had simply and completely vanished. At first, scientists considered the obvious and safest hypothesis. Maybe it had shattered completely, reduced to a cloud of vapor and dust too faint to possibly detect. But comets that naturally die leave distinct fingerprints, expanding debris clouds, lingering dust trails, recognizable fragment paths. And this time there was nothing, not even the faintest shimmer of residual matter. This wasn't a glitch in the software. This wasn't a minor miscalculation in the orbital mechanics. This was something else entirely. An event that unfolded not in random chaos, but with striking precision. 3IATLAS disappeared exactly when it was hidden by the overwhelming glare of the sun. Exactly when the world couldn't watch its most critical moment. And that is why this moment genuinely haunts astronomers. It didn't just vanish randomly into open space. It appears to have used the sun as a shield, disappearing in the one critical window when we were technically blind. When a natural object breaks apart, it leaves a trail, a cosmic breadcrumb path that tells the entire story of its destruction. We can track debris clouds for weeks, sometimes even months. Dust lingers, fragments drift. Space simply doesn't erase things that easily or cleanly. But with 3IATLAS, there was nothing. No dust signature, no residual cloud, no fragment glimmering faintly in the dark. The Hubble Space Telescope can detect objects smaller than a city block at enormous interstellar distances. If 3IATLAS had shattered, even the tiniest pieces should have shown up in those high-resolution scans. Instead, the data came back blank. A clean, sharp absence where 33 billion tons of matter should have been moving at precise, predictable speeds. Then came the second possibility. Maybe, just maybe, there had been a profound miscalculation in the trajectory models. Maybe the object had emerged from behind the sun, just not where anyone expected it to be. But here's the problem with that hopeful idea. This trajectory was calculated with surgical, undeniable precision. For months, multiple major observatories measured its speed, its position, and its acceleration to the tiniest fractions of a second. They accounted for the gravitational pull of every major body in the solar system. They factored in the minute pressure of solar radiation. They even rigorously corrected for relativistic effects. The established error margin was smaller than a grain of sand in an entire ocean. To lose it entirely would require a change in velocity so massive that no known natural process could possibly explain it. This was not a case of the math being subtly wrong. The math was flawless, which leaves us with something far more unsettling. The object itself changed the story. It didn't drift away, it didn't shatter, it didn't fade, it moved, or it made itself unseen in a way nature simply doesn't do on its own. And that single undeniable fact has scientists whispering what they rarely say out loud. 3IATLAS isn't just another comet. It might be something fundamentally different. There's a critical moment in every close solar encounter when the complex geometry of space and light creates a kind of cosmic blackout, a gap, a specific place where, from Earth, even our most powerful instruments can't observe what's happening behind the sun's glare. 3IATLAS passed through that gap like it had been deliberately waiting for it. As it moved behind the sun, it entered the deepest part of the solar gravity well. This is the precise place where a small, deliberate push can dramatically rewrite an entire orbit. This isn't science fiction, it's a real and well-known principle called the Oberth effect. When something applies thrust at its fastest point, right at the bottom of a gravity well, that small burst of energy turns into a massive exponential trajectory change. If 3IATLAS had any form of propulsion, even something modest or concealed, that single moment near the sun would have been the most efficient and strategic time to use it. A gentle nudge there could have redirected it toward the outer planets, or into a stable orbit around the sun itself, or sent it somewhere we haven't even thought to look for it yet. And here's the most haunting detail of all. The disappearance didn't happen randomly in space. It happened at the one exact time when anything truly extraordinary could unfold without being seen. No telescope could pierce through the blinding solar glare. No radar could successfully trace its movement across that wall of heat and plasma. Then, when the observation window reopened again, it was simply gone. Not slower, not dimmer, but gone. It's almost as if the object waited patiently for that blind spot, as if it knew exactly when the world wouldn't be watching its maneuver. You know, for scientists who live and breathe in data and probabilities, this isn't just strange, it's chilling. Because if 3IATLAS did maneuver deliberately in that fleeting moment, then what vanished behind the sun might not have been just a rock. Then came the observation from October 3rd, a precision flyby of Mars, passing within 29 million kilometers. That's not just unusual, that's statistically astonishing, a cosmic coincidence with less than one chance in 50,000. You know, individually, any of these baffling details could perhaps be written off as strange but purely natural phenomena. But when you put them all together, the undeniable pattern begins to whisper something far more unnerving and deliberate. It looks less like a randomly wandering object and much more like a traveler on a pre-planned route. 3IATLAS didn't just arrive. It meticulously executed a complex sequence. And then, at the exact moment when all eyes were supposed to be on the sky, it disappeared into the silence, like a performer expertly stepping off stage right after the final spectacular act. You know, when the object disappeared, the immediate reaction from the world's major space agencies followed a familiar, predictable rhythm, a rhythm we've seen before with other anomalies. NASA released cautious, carefully worded statements, choosing each word with extreme care, emphasizing the persistent need for more data, more time, and more analysis. The European Space Agency acknowledged the detection gap, but held firmly to the safest, most conventional explanation: fragmentation. And China, which had the best possible view from its Mars orbiter during the critical solar window, said nothing at all. This isn't the first time we've experienced the silence grow louder than the signal. When the first interstellar visitor appeared years ago, certain key radar data and spectrographic results stayed behind closed doors for months. The same thing happened with the second visitor. And now, with 3IATLAS, the pattern tightens again. Information slows down dramatically. Reports vanish into classified channels. Official voices speak softly, if at all. You know, some observers say it's merely bureaucracy slowing down the process. Some say it's necessary caution to prevent widespread panic. But to many in the scientific community, it feels much more like something else entirely. Institutional hesitation and fear in the immediate face of the truly unknown. Not necessarily because of a full-blown conspiracy, but because acknowledging what doesn't fit the established rulebook is fundamentally terrifying for large organizations. You know, no one wants to be the first to say the word artificial out loud. No one wants to ignite global panic or wild, unsupported speculation, so they stall, they measure, they wait for better proof. But in that quiet, calculated delay, something unsettling happens. The absence of concrete answers effectively becomes an answer in itself, right? And that silence is louder now than ever before. It stretches between observatories, between agencies, between nations, a profound silence that suggests this disappearance isn't just another predictable anomaly. It's a question too big, too dangerous, too uncertain to answer out loud. 3IATLAS didn't just vanish from our sky. It pulled the truth into a shadow no one seems genuinely ready to step into or examine. I know even after the object vanished from direct visual observation, telescopes didn't fall silent. They kept actively listening to the void, and in that quiet sky, something subtle began to emerge. A faint rhythmic signal hidden just beneath the noise threshold. Not a broadcast in the way Hollywood imagines it, no booming message, no voice from the stars, just a whisper in the background, like the lingering echo of a passing train that no one actually saw go by. You know, astrophysicists at several independent observatories noticed it almost at the same time. A soft, repeating modulation in the reflected solar radiation, barely above the absolute threshold of detection, yet too perfectly regular to be random and far too structured to be ignored. At first, they dismissed it as an instrumental glitch or routine interference. But the pattern didn't fade away. It persisted for days, then weeks, subtly bouncing between frequency bands as if actively tracking something completely unseen. You know, publicly, the major agencies said nothing. Privately, encrypted emails and secured messages began to move rapidly through scientific circles. A few brave researchers admitted what others were deeply afraid to say out loud: the signal didn't match any known natural phenomenon. Not comet tails, not fragmentation dust, not even cosmic interference. Something was profoundly different. This wasn't the kind of simple signal you stumble upon every day. It clearly possessed timing, structure, and intent, or at least it felt strongly like it. Some compared its repeating nature to the famous wow signal from the 70s. Others whispered it might be a new form of interstellar echo, a signature left behind either intentionally or accidentally. And here's the part that raised every professional eyebrow in the room. The subtle modulation lined up perfectly with the precise moment of the object's disappearance, as if whatever 3IATLAS truly was, it left a distinct fingerprint in the electromagnetic fabric of space. A final quiet proof that vanishing didn't mean leaving nothing behind at all. It meant something was still actively out there, just much harder to see or detect. When whispers about the unique signal began to circulate widely, the official responses arrived like clockwork, perfectly coordinated. NASA held a carefully scripted public briefing, calmly explaining that the observed modulation was likely the result of residual solar interference combined with minor instrumental artifacts. Their public message was polished, deliberate, and most of all, dismissive of any profound interpretation. The European Space Agency followed with its own statement, nearly identical in tone and content. They mentioned routine data irregularities, stressed the great importance of not jumping to any premature conclusions, and quietly shifted the public focus back to other, more routine missions. But what truly caught everyone's attention wasn't what they said. It was how perfectly synchronized their words were. Different agencies, different continents, but the same measured, dismissive language, almost line for line, Then came the silence from China again. No confirmation, no denial, just an absence of information that made the coordinated explanations from the West feel even more rehearsed and suspicious. Independent researchers, however, weren't buying the official line. A group of radio astronomers anonymously leaked portions of their raw data to private networks, clearly showing that the pattern didn't match any known interference signature. It wasn't random, it wasn't simple noise. It was definitively something else entirely, And just like that, a quiet war of narratives began to rage. On one side, the powerful institutions urging calm and patience, presenting polished, conventional explanations. On the other, a rapidly growing number of independent scientists and observers whispering that the actual truth is actively being held back. Not out of malice or ill intent, but purely out of fear. Fear of what acknowledging that consistent signal might truly mean. Because if the modulation is real, if it genuinely came from 3IATLAS, then this wasn't just a passively disappearing object. It was an interaction, a moment when something out there might have noticed us noticing it. And that powerful idea was something no agency seemed remotely ready to discuss out loud or confirm. Behind the public denials and polished press releases, something even stranger began happening in the background. Observatories around the world reported sudden, mandatory schedule shifts. Telescope time that had been booked months in advance was quietly overridden and reallocated. Government research satellites abruptly redirected their sensors toward the very same patch of empty space where 3IATLAS had last been definitively seen. No one was publicly saying why, but the pattern was clear. Someone, somewhere highly placed, still deeply believed there was something out there to watch and track. Private observatories began noticing faint, momentary flashes of light near the object's original trajectory. Not bright enough to warrant calling it a definitive reappearance, but just enough to keep people awake at night, anxiously running computer simulations over and over again. These weren't meteor trails, weren't routine lens flares, weren't anything that could be easily explained away by known phenomena. It was like trying to track a subtle shadow that utterly refused to stay still or materialize fully. What they found wasn't a clear single object. It was a faint trail, a thread of persistent, subtle anomalies, each one seemingly insignificant alone, but together forming a defined path. A path leading away from the inner solar system, as if something had changed its course deliberately. Not drifting like passive debris, not dissolving like dust, but actively moving. The major agencies stayed stubbornly silent, but those watching carefully from the outside began to realize that what had started as a single, simple mystery might no longer be just a single object. It was now a complex, unfolding phenomenon, rippling outward in ways no one had been prepared for. 3IATLAS may have utterly vanished from sight, but its profound presence and lingering mystery had only grown louder and more demanding of attention. It was no longer just a mere object. It had effectively become a hidden message in motion. Hey, don't stop here. The universe is absolutely full of secrets waiting to be uncovered and understood. Click on the next video and join us as we explore even more astonishing mysteries from the farthest reaches of space